So I got the Boss Long, I got the NOM 13.9 8-weight. Touch and go casting, any kind, whether it's long lines or short lines. And if you're having trouble getting over the hump to where you're inconsistent, especially with the longer lines, one tip that has helped me a lot, and this might not even be proper technical approved casting, but through a lot of observation, studying videos of some of the greatest casters, from Ed Ward to Klaus Freemore to Geir Hansen. Geir Hansen is one of the great competition casters in the possibly the greatest in the world right now. Right up there, watching guys like him, Zach Williams, Travis Johnson, all those guys, but in particular, the first three guys I mentioned. I got a 13-foot 9-inch rod and a 65-foot Boss Long on here, okay? So basically, might be a little more like 63 feet, but I also got almost a 20-foot mono leader on here. The tip is, and I don't even know if this is correct, but what helps me is to just smush all the parts of the cast together. So we got the left, hang on. So what do we have? The left, the sweep, right? Maybe rotate the body too, in a single spey, and then the circle up in the firing position, and then the cast. So for a long time, I was trying to sweep and then pause for my anchor to float in, land, or scream in and land, and then cast. So the idea was to get that perfect sweep on the inclined rod path. So it would be like this, and then sweep, drift, fire. And that is a tall order to sweep, drift, fire. You know, divide them all up. So now I do them all at once. I lift, and my lift turns into a sweep. Instead of sweeping and waiting for my line to float through the air, I sweep and go right into my circle up. So, instead of that, like we just discussed, now it looks more like this. Okay? Lift, sweep, circle up, cast. See? I blended my sweep into my circle up, and then I was able to cast, and I had a little time to wait. The biggest problem with getting a good anchor in touch and go casting for me is I like to turn the sweep into one motion, to turn it into all one thing, which is probably really bad advice from an approved casting person. So instead of doing all those parts at once and trying to lift and sweep and then drift up and cast, I have way better luck if I do it, I don't want to say in a continuous motion, because you may have to pause right here and then cast, but you hear how it went off. So the idea is to keep tension in there by turning the cast into kind of all one thing. You could say continuous motion, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to make a continuous motion cast out of this necessarily, because there is a pause required waiting for your anchor to land, plain and simple. But I like to mash them all together. Lift, sweep, and go right into the circle up, go right into the circle up from the sweep. And I know some people don't even like the term circle up, but to me, the circle up is supposed to be a drift. But to me, it's more part really of a stroke where you're just blending it in to the sweep, okay? So and the best way to know if your circle up is correct, you sweep, and if your rod is going during the sweep down and this way through pushing with your hand, rotating your body, and then the top is coming up. Usually what happens is, and I do this all the time, is lift, sweep, and you think the rod tip's going up, but then at the very end it dips down a little bit, and maybe you even go like this and cast, and you get the stick, the line stick. So a for sure way of knowing if you're getting your sweep correct is if the rod butt is traveling out and around, okay? And that's gonna happen through, you can push your hand out, you can rotate your body, but before, right when the sweep ends, and even try it even a little before, you can start your circle up. And people think they don't do this, but a lot of guys who say they don't and think they don't are. They just flat out are. There's one guy who does this, Shinobu, the distance caster from Japan. If you watch him, he is very strict, or he was, about lifting, sweeping, drifting, and firing. Very disciplined. But if you watch Geir Hansen on video, it just looks to me, I don't know him in person, I haven't done a thorough in-person study or talk, but it looks to me like he sweeps around, or he sweeps and then drifts all in one motion. Sweep and circle up in the same motion, and then he waits. Okay, so it's like finger, wait, cast. So I just tried it, and I tried it because of all the Klaus Freemore videos I watched, and I realized to get a D-loop that stays off the water, that works. It works really good. You know, learning how to scandy cast correctly, lifting. You can glean things off one style of casting that will hopefully help in the rest, and that's what I've done. Lift, out, around, and back, and cast. Okay? What might happen to you if you come really flat and then go up really high like this, you may get an anchor that lands butt first, fly line first, then mono. I thought I was going to get a crumpled anchor, but I got a nice D-loop. Okay, that. I'll try to do it. I'll try to make it real abrupt. So I'll try to do it in the camera. I'm gonna cause the butt of the leader to land first. See that? You get a crumpled anchor, and you want that anchor nice and flat. Believe me, it really helps. So that's where it takes a little massaging, a little practice, a lot of practice, because the most important part of the cast is how the anchor lands, to me. So, but I can do it all at once and be in the firing position like that. Anchor landed perfect, and at first it's kind of hard to do, to get used to, but after I've done it a while, okay, I'll show. Here's what it looks like from the back. Okay, perfect anchor placement. So it's basically my, now for long lines, I'm probably gonna stretch out and lift from here, you know, to the target, sweep around. But if you sweep around, sweep, drift in one motion, circle up, set the anchor, that D loop is gonna stay off the water. Pop, you know, you may think that it'll make the D loop go behind you, but if you do it right, and you cast the D loop out to the side and then circle up, it'll give you that nice D loop, and it'll keep the line off the water so you don't get all that stick. So here's another side view. I got a little bit of a crinkly anchor, but if you make sure the rod butt goes out and around and down, see, perfect anchor. And it's not because it naturally happens that way. That part has come through practice and knowing, you know, just how much to accelerate throughout that. You're just gonna have to figure it out for yourself. Instead of trying to sweep and then pause, I like to sweep and circle up and then pause. And that thing was freaking right on the money. Right on the money. It'll work best if you kind of figure this out for yourself. But watch Geyer Hansen cast, and you'll notice, from what I can tell, I'm not saying I know all this for sure, I'm just observing. Kind of does it more or less in one motion, and while he's waiting for the anchor to come in, he's like seriously cocked and ready. You got to get your hands up. And if the rod butt is going out and around and across, and basically down, the rod tip's going to go out and around and up. You know, so instead of having sticky anchors, you might have crumpled anchors until you get it figured out. But that, to me, is really, when I figured that part out, I could really, I could cast, do a honest to goodness underhand cast with a little more sloppy rod and get that nice anchor and D loop. See, I can, and then for you know, you might change it. But if you do that, and sometimes if I'm really struggling, just for grins, I'll like sweep and drift and circle up at the same time. If you're really having trouble, you can sweep up and circle up at the same time. I'm sure that is a big no-no, but it might get you over the hump. You might like have to try that, hit a couple good ones, and then backfill until you get the desired stroke, right? So, like you could do this. Left sweep, circle up. If you're casting a really long line and you're struggling with it, you can do that. And then just backfill that whole process until you're casting something that's a little more, I don't know, or stay casting like that if that works for you. Sometimes that is the breakthrough you need when you're trying to go from a scandy head to a mid belly, or even a short mid belly. If you're trying to go from a scandy to like a 60-foot line, or even a 50-foot line, that tip right there will help you get the D-loop off the water. See, I blended my sweep into my circle up, and then I was able to cast, and I had a little time to wait. That's all I'm trying to say. Try it for the snake roll. This will be a little trickier. But the idea is to keep your hands in front of your face. So you won't get out of position. See, that time I circled around and got a crumpled anchor. So now I'm just gonna self-correct, try to get it smoother. Much better. Anchor was right there. Awesome. With my normal snake roll, I'm more liable to go like that. And sometimes when I do that, I do a windshield wiper sweep and forward cast. So if you could, but you gotta kind of massage it in there. You just can't go whoop. You know, you gotta sweep, you gotta keep tension, you gotta go smooth, you gotta be accelerating slightly. It's gotta be super smooth. Your rod tip pass gotta be clean. And you achieve that by pushing with your bottom hand down and around. So that's the tip. And you'll go 2 steps backwards for sure, maybe, especially if you're kind of successful. But you know, just season to taste. Try this out. If it doesn't work, if it's stupid, if it destroys your casting, then do something else. Just give it a shot. Give it a try. Try to get that D-loop off the water and flat anchor. And it's going to take a lot of practice. But what else are you going to do on a beautiful day when there's no fish around, right? The problem I was having before with my casting is I'd sweep, and then I'd get my hands up. I'd almost have to be casting sidearm. And now that I'm sweeping, circling up together, I'm more up and down. Not perfectly up and down, but more up and down. Before, I was sweeping, and then like left-handed, I almost had to cast sidearm. So I didn't really have much of a drift up. I just kind of threw it back and then quick sidearmed it. You can never really get something figured out for that. The circle up, the drift, whatever you want to call it, going from the sweep to firing position, it was kind of just this thing that I didn't think about. It was just kind of getting into the firing position. So I cast and then do like that, sweep and cast. But now that I have what I want, I can practice this where I'm lifting going right into the firing position from the circle up. Okay, so like that. So I basically had to redefine the circle up or the drift, whatever you want to call it. Some guys don't like the terms, but I do. Circle that rod tip up, circle the butt out and around and down. If one thing's happening, the other thing's gonna happen, you know. That's how I do it now. Okay, so yes, I am casting left-handed. I don't have my camera on my phone reversed. One thing I know when I've done it properly is when I'm in the firing position, I'm like this, okay? Rod's pretty much up and down, canted to the side a little bit. Remember, the D-loops and anchor are to the sides. The D-loop's not behind me. It's lined up with the target, and you can, yes, cast like this and have the D-loop come next beside you. Okay, watch Telis Katsogiannis cast. That's how he casts, okay? So, when I've, you know, done it and I do it right, I'm like this. So that's how I end up. So, lift, push out and around, and while the bottom hand goes down and around, down, the top hand goes up. So you can do it while you're going up and get that anchor, get that D-loop up in the air. So that way I know I'm not slipping back into my old habits. I end up like that, okay?